When winter arrives in the northern forests of North America, most animals have only two options: migrate away from the cold or find a shelter where the temperature never falls below freezing. For frogs, this choice is especially critical. Freezing temperatures are normally lethal because ice inside a living body is devastating. Sharp crystals can puncture delicate cell membranes, water can be sucked out of cells as extracellular fluids solidify, and when circulation stops, tissues are left starved of oxygen. For most vertebrates, the formation of ice means death. But a few remarkable species, like the wood frog, Rana sylvatica, and certain tree frogs, such as Hyla versicolor, have evolved something extraordinary. They don't avoid freezing, they tolerate it. They allow ice to spread through their bodies, their hearts to stop, and their brains to shut down. And yet, when spring arrives, they return to life. To understand this miracle, we need to explore why ice is usually fatal. When water freezes, it expands and forms jagged crystals. Inside a cell, these crystals shred membranes and organelles beyond repair. At the same time, when water leaves the extracellular environment to form ice, the remaining fluid becomes saltier. That creates a dangerous osmotic imbalance. Water rushes out of cells, leaving them shriveled and chemically imbalanced. On top of that, circulation ceases, starving tissues of oxygen and energy. When blood flow eventually resumes, the sudden rush of oxygen can generate destructive free radicals, a phenomenon called reperfusion injury. These three problems, mechanical damage, osmotic stress, and ischemia, are what make freezing almost universally fatal. Freeze-tolerant frogs survive because they have evolved a way to control all three of these threats. As soon as ice touches their skin in early winter, a physiological alarm is triggered. Stress hormones, especially epinephrine and glucagon, surge through the body. The liver responds by rapidly breaking down its massive glycogen reserves, releasing enormous quantities of glucose into the bloodstream. In wood frogs, this glucose can accumulate to concentrations 10 or even 20 times higher than normal. In some tree frogs, glycerol plays a similar role, and in many species, urea levels rise during autumn acclimation. These molecules are often called antifreeze, but that term is misleading. The concentrations achieved inside the frog's tissues only depress the freezing point by a fraction of a degree, not nearly enough to prevent ice formation at temperatures well below zero. Instead, their real function is protective. They stabilize proteins, help membranes stay intact, and prevent lethal ice growth inside cells. Here's how it works in detail. The first ice crystals form outside the cells, in the skin and body cavities. This extracellular ice draws water out of cells through osmosis, but the process is carefully managed. Frog tissues express specialized water channels called aquaporins, which allow water to exit rapidly and in a controlled fashion. As cells dehydrate, the high concentrations of glucose, glycerol, and urea inside them reduce the risk of ice nucleation within the cytoplasm. Rather than becoming rigid blocks of ice, the interiors of the cells turn into highly concentrated, syrupy solutions that remain unfrozen. At the same time, these solutes stabilize proteins, preserve the spacing of lipid bilayers, and blunt the denaturing effects of high salt concentrations. The frog's metabolism also shifts dramatically. With circulation grinding to a halt and oxygen delivery essentially gone, the animal enters a state of profound metabolic depression. Ion pumps slow down, protein synthesis is suspended, and neurons enter what scientists call channel arrest, a reduction in ion channel activity that minimizes energy demand. Cellular pathways that normally produce damaging free radicals are quieted, while protective systems like heat shock proteins, molecular chaperones, and antioxidants are upregulated. Even membrane composition changes. Cold threatens to make lipid bilayers brittle, but freeze-tolerant frogs increase the proportion of unsaturated fatty acids in their membranes, keeping them flexible in freezing conditions. Once frozen, the frog becomes astonishingly inert. The heart no longer beats, breathing stops, and the animal appears lifeless. Yet its cells remain alive, suspended in a state of chemical preservation. More than half of the water in the frog's body can actually freeze, leaving it stiff as a board. But the strategic use of cryoprotectants ensures that enough intracellular fluid remains unfrozen and safe. In this condition, the frog can survive for weeks, sometimes months, beneath snow and leaf litter, waiting for spring. When the thaw finally comes, the process reverses. As sunlight warms the soil, the extracellular ice begins to melt. Slowly, circulation resumes, the heart twitches back into rhythm, and blood perfuses tissues once more. Because the frogs have primed their antioxidant defenses, they can handle the surge of oxygen without catastrophic damage. Glucose and other cryoprotectants are cleared or stored again as glycogen, membranes regain their fluid balance, and within hours, the frog can hop away, seemingly none the worse for its frozen ordeal. This adaptation is not just a curiosity of nature, it has profound implications for science and medicine. The principles of freeze tolerance echo in modern cryobiology, the field that studies how to preserve living cells and tissues at low temperatures. By learning how frogs direct ice formation, how they deploy cryoprotectants, and how they suppress metabolism without dying, scientists hope to improve the storage of human organs for transplantation, preserve cell therapies for longer periods, and maybe one day even develop techniques that allow humans to survive in suspended states for medical purposes or long-duration spaceflight. So, the next time you step into the cold and see the snow covering the forest floor, remember, somewhere beneath the leaf litter lies a frog, frozen solid to the touch. Heart stopped, lungs silent, blood congealed, yet perfectly poised to awaken when spring returns. It is a living demonstration that death and survival are not always separated by a simple line, but by the remarkable adaptations that evolution has written into the biology of life.